Hello and welcome to the Checkpoint Reach podcast. I'm your host Luke Keldon. Today I'm joined by Sud and also our special guest TJFLGaming. How you doing, mate?
I'm good, thanks, mate. You?
Yeah, doing well, thanks. Glad to have you on. Looking forward to this and another Welshman to join the crew.
Yes, South Wales. Lovely, repping it.
Yeah, the first South Walian on the podcast.
Yeah.
Tick. I mean, I nearly said an all Welsh podcast, but I've just remembered, Sud, you're actually English.
I'm not Welsh, I'm English.
Traitor.
I've lived in Wales. It's funny though, because I've lived in Wales like way longer than I've lived in England, so I don't even know why. I don't know what I am anymore. Like, who knows?
You're part of Bojo's army, so we'll leave you with him.
Certainly not part of his army. That's I can tell you that. Don't want to get political, but I'm certainly not part of his army. So.
Well, there we are. But anyway, like Sud's mentioned, we're not going to get political. Don't worry. We are going to talk some gaming, and that's why we brought Tim on to discuss some games. So today, the first topic is actually going to be related to Cyberpunk, because obviously that's been pretty big of late. CD Projekt Reds says rumoured Cyberpunk 2077 development details are simply not true. They tweeted out, normally we don't comment on rumours, but this time we wanted to make an exception as the story is simply not true. So this has come after many videos and people speculating that basically a lot of content's been cut from the game. And I've actually watched some of the videos as well, and it seemed like that was the case from... I can't remember where the walkthrough demo of Cyberpunk was, if it was like an E3 or something, but they were saying, oh, you can do this and you can do this in the world, and it turned out that you actually couldn't do that in Night City. So it felt like they have taken away aspects, but they've come out and said it's not true. What do you guys think?
I'll let Tim go first on this one.
Yeah, I definitely say it feels like a No Man's Sky situation where they sold us a lot of promises saying you can do this and there's going to be these working ecosystems and you know, the actions you take throughout the world are going to have a everlasting effect on the overall world. Mm-hmm. But it definitely comes across that what they wanted to build in terms of the game just didn't come to fruition at all. I mean, I don't know if you guys have seen some videos on the internet. I've seen one where some guy managed to get up on top of like a train station, which I didn't even know there were in the game.
Yes, I've seen that video.
Seen this one? And he goes up and it says open door. So, he goes up to the door and he opens it and it's just blank. It's just building blocks of a partially built train station. So I think for them to come out and say, this game wasn't unfinished and they didn't cut content, it might not be a lie as such, but it's far from the truth as well.
Mm-hmm. No, absolutely. What Tim says, absolutely right. There's, I know you two have both completed it, so you probably put a good 30, 40 hours in at least, but even the 6 or 7 hours that I've played, I can tell that there should, I don't know, there's a lot there, but you also feel like there should be more there in a weird sort of way. It's really an odd feeling for me. It's like, even when you're going through the city, you're like, it's cool. I like the setting, I like what's going on, but then you think there could be more people in the city. There could be more, I don't know, there could just be more of a vibe to it, which I feel like if they give the game a bit longer, that could have possibly happened. Mm-hmm. Because it's just them little added details I think they needed to get right, and that's the parts. Because the actual game itself, I feel like from what I've played so far anyway, I really like the writing in the game. I like the characters. I think they've kind of nailed that aspect of it from what I've seen so far. That could change, of course, but there's just definitely, the gameplay for me could be better. I think it's all right, but it's not great,
I didn't enjoy the combat really.
No, I don't think it's it's just okay. It's acceptable, but it's not. You don't enjoy it. You know what I mean? So it's like it's just there. And even I've had, I don't know about you, Steve. Probably I've not actually had as many glitches as I thought I would have.
You've played it a bit later though, haven't you? You've had some patches. I have
had patches, so I've probably been a bit luckier there than I know you, Eldon, obviously played it when there'd only been maybe one patch.
Yeah, I think it was.
Whereas I've had probably 2 or 3 patches, so it's obviously helped a bit. I've still had the odd thing where people disappear. I think we've all had that. I've had one game crash. I've had the game crash on me once. Luckily, it auto-saved like a second before, so that was good. But yeah, and then, with the comments coming out saying about, it's all a pack, basically saying it's a pack of lies. I don't know. I feel like there is some truth.
Well,
so there's no smoke without fire, so.
Didn't they change their like wording of the game from being an RPG to an action shooter as well?
Did they?
I heard something about that. I might be wrong. I'd have to double check, but I swear I heard that they changed the terminology they were using.
I mean, to be fair, it does seem like it feels unbalanced in between being an action and an RPG game. And sometimes it feels like a really strong RPG, but a really weak action game. And then a little bit later on in the game, it just seems to flip on its head. So I can definitely agree with that idea. My playthrough was littered with bugs. It was definitely probably one of the worst experiences I've had in years. Like, it was bad. And the fact that I'm playing on Series X and it was that bad, like, I genuinely do feel for people who are playing it on the older hardware and had been waiting years for this game. Because at the end of the day, I know the fans did try and big the game up, but CD Projekt Red hyped the games themselves. They brought this on themselves. And I do just feel so bad for people who played on previous gen. It must be pretty painful.
No, absolutely, yeah. Yeah,
the videos we've seen have been awful, and I've told pretty much all our mates who have been interested in the game that have the previous generation consoles now. Just wait. It's not worth 100%. It. It's really not worth it. And similar to you, Tim, the worst game I played in ages for bugs, the most buggiest game I played in a long time, actually. And I played it on the S, so it wasn't quite the X, but I couldn't even imagine trying to play that on because I had the OG Xbox One like 2 months ago.
Awful.
It's been impossible.
And like the original PS4.
The OG PS4 struggle as well. And what has it been? When was it first announced? 2012? I think it was 2012.
Yeah, the game was announced. It's not actually, to be fair, a lot of people say, no, it's been in development. It hasn't been in development for 8 years. It's been in development for 4 years, apparently, since 2016, early 2016. Yeah. So it's not quite accurate to say the game's been in development for 8 years, because they kind of shelved it for a bit, obviously with doing Witcher and the DLC. And that's then when they started concentrating on Cyberpunk 1, so that was out. So the game's, it's like a 4-year game really in development. But even so, even a 4-year game in development shouldn't have this many bugs. No. I mean, I know they're ambitious, and I know they have been you can tell it's so weird. I feel in two minds about the game, because you can tell in some ways the game has been ambitious in some of the things it's done, but then you can tell it's cut corners at the same time.
100%. Yeah,
it's such a 50-50 game like that, because there'll be some sequences where you go, wow, this is actually I'm really enjoying this. It's really cool what they've done. But then there's some things where you're like, feels a bit
underwhelming,
lame, underwhelming and lame. So it's such a 50-50 game so far for me in some ways. But
yeah, well, like Tim just touched on with the hype as well, they definitely hyped up, because I can't remember what article I was reading, but they said that essentially they spent nearly, or if not half their budget was on marketing.
Yeah.
That's absolutely insane when you think about it.
How much did Keanu cost?
I'd love to know.
It wouldn't have been cheap.
Not cheap. Did you hear that apparently as well that the Project Red dev saying that Johnny was way cooler before Keanu came on?
Yeah, he was going to be modelled off Cillian Murphy, I think.
Oh, really?
Yeah, someone said David Hayter as well.
Yeah, it was them two together.
Wow, it's really strange. I mean, I don't know. I because I'm not following the game, I can't really judge yet. Like, is that character as good as he could?
I'd like to ask Tim actually. Okay, what did you think of Keanu as Johnny?
Honestly, think for me anyway, Keanu Reeves is the best part of the game. And
really?
I'm not even a fan of him, but like his character was probably, for me anyway, the most developed character in the game.
Mm-hmm.
And second to him would be, I can't really say, but the side characters, they were all so well developed. But then the character you play as V, I literally couldn't care less about him.
Yeah.
I didn't find his performance drove me. I didn't find his motives made any sense. He was, honestly, if Keanu Reeves wasn't in the game, I think I might have struggled to complete it.
Really?
Yeah, like he fully put me through to the end of that game.
See,
so
I'm with you.
Yeah, I was gonna say, like, some people say, Keanu Reeves is in here and they've just done it for money. I'm like, well, no, actually, he's done a really good job, and like he is a convincing sort of bad guy / good guy. Like, he does do his job really well, and I think that people are really underselling his performance in the game. I think it's a reason to buy the game, just his performance alone.
See, I'm with you. I actually really enjoyed Keanu as Johnny. I enjoyed the way he delivered it. I enjoyed the kind of what's the word I'm looking for? Like that rugged, cool guy kind of vibe.
Sort of,
yeah. And yet, when I when I've been online and checked, I've seen people slating him, saying that it took him out of the game and his delivery's terrible and stuff. And I just think, wait, I know it's subjective, but after playing it myself, I think I don't know how you've come to that conclusion. I really enjoyed it, and every time he was on screen, that was probably when I was the most invested.
Yeah. When he came on screen, like I was zoned in, and it was funny because when he's on screen, I'm zoned into the game, and then when I'm playing the game, I'm constantly being thrown out the game by glitches. So it's just constantly going back and forth.
Yeah.
But yeah, like I think he needs more praise, or at least his character needs more praise than he has been getting so far.
I'm assuming we all have played as the male V.
I did.
Yes. Yeah.
I've heard that apparently the female V a lot better. Voice acting's a lot better with the female V.
Right. Okay.
Apparently, I've heard the male V. Some people were saying,
Yeah, I don't think the voice acting's the problem. I think it's his lines. Just his dialogue is. I don't know. Can I cuss a little bit?
Yeah. Feel free to cuss.
Maybe. I just say he's a jackass. That's literally the only way I can put it. He's just a jackass. They try and make him up as like the cool cowboy-esque sort of character, and it doesn't land well with me at all.
What are your feelings of V at the moment? So I'd only 7 hours roughly into it.
I'd agree with you to it. I've got to be honest, out of the characters, obviously there's a lot more characters for me to meet, of course, but out of the characters that I've met, I'm way more interested in the other characters rather than V, if that makes sense. I think that comes, though, as well, from having someone you create yourself. I always think that in games. Whenever it's a character you have to create, in general, there is exceptions to the rule. Shepard in Mass Effect is an exception to the rule, in my opinion. But in most games where you have to create your own character, you're never going to have the same feeling of a protagonist. Whereas in The Witcher, you have Geralt. You don't create Geralt; he is just Geralt. What they've written,
established character, yeah.
Yeah. Whereas with V, you've got different. You look online, and some people have got purple hair, some people have got massive tattoos, some people have got no hair. It's like it's not going to have the same effect for me. So that's obviously, and maybe that was their intention to take, to highlight the side characters and stuff, and the other characters more than V himself, which. I don't know. Maybe that'll work. I mean, like I said, I am more invested in the side characters and sort of the heroes and villains, whatever you want to call them, so far that I've seen. So
funny you touch on that, because when I actually completed the game, obviously no spoilers because of Sud not completing it yet, but I didn't really care too much what happened to V in it. I was more concerned with what happened to the side characters and how it left them.
Yeah, 100%.
Yeah,
100%. Like that's it. Like in my review as well, that's something I said. I was like, this is a game which is supposedly based around your dialogue options and choices throughout the game, and none of the choices I made were for V's benefit or my benefit. They were simply based on what the the stories of the side characters were. So I think that does go to show that the writing for the side characters is good and the story is good. It's just V himself as a character isn't that interesting a vessel to play through.
Yeah, he's a bit bland.
Yeah.
Would you, having completed the game, would you two say that's actually a big problem or not, though? Or would you say like you don't actually? Are you that bothered that V was a bit bland and boring? Does it matter because maybe you cared about side characters a lot, so it's like, well, I'm not that bothered then.
I think because I'm given the choice of dialogue options, and I'm not a silent protagonist who I can pretend, I am this character. V is an established character who does have a personality. So because he is meant to be an actual person, I find it difficult to not care, if that makes sense.
Yeah,
it's like, well, I'm trying to. It's a bit like if you had Shepard, and he was an asshole during key cutscenes, but then the dialogue options he's the nice guy, and they just contradict themselves constantly.
Yeah, I know what you mean.
I think that's what I'm trying to get at, is he doesn't marry up with the choices you can make in the game.
Do you know, just quickly, it's funny you say that, because I feel like that's why I'd never play a playthrough of Mass Effect being like half and half. It's like, nah, you can't. I don't know. I couldn't do that. You'd have to either be full Renegade or full Paragon. Either way for me, because it makes no sense
apart from
otherwise.
the news agent or reporter, I punch you in the face every time.
Yeah, I do that every time.
Right.
I do that every time as well.
Yeah.
But it's just funny. And that's one good thing about doing a Renegade playthrough. It's hilarious. Some of the options, the dialogue options are hilarious.
Yeah. But either way, you still feel like you're Shepard, if that makes sense. You still feel like Shepard.
Yeah.
Whereas V just like he doesn't feel like me, and he doesn't feel like his own character. He's just like a mush. A first-person perspective mush, and I don't really know what to take away from his character.
Is he kind of like a soulless vessel?
Yeah, yeah, and a jackass.
just kind of like nothing there. Kind of like, yeah.
Yeah.
Basically, you could replace B with anyone, and it could be the main character, basically.
100%. And it's such a shame because CD Projekt's last game was so good. Like Geralt was.
Oh yeah, Geralt.
I loved him.
You know, Geralt is probably one of the best characters you can play in a video game. Just to have the complete opposite end of the scale is just very jarring and a disappointment. But
do you think that mainly might be because obviously with The Witcher it came from a book, which helped them a lot because they already had the character there, didn't they? They didn't have to do too much because the character of Geralt was already there from the book and the writing and stuff. So maybe. Having said that, however, obviously some of the side characters seem well written in Cyberpunk, so it's a bit of a strange one.
Yeah, I think it's probably just. I don't know whether I'm looking into it too much, but I think maybe it might just be that choice of giving us too much flexibility in terms of being able to customize him and make him partially like our own character, and then put us in the first person perspective so we feel even more like that character. But then he's written as if he's a third person perspective character. And I think it's that sort of jumping back and forth between the two that sort of throws you off.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. To be honest, yeah, I agreed. I must admit, thinking back now to when I played through, because I actually enjoyed it. I got a lot of enjoyment out of the game, even though, it was hampered by bugs and stuff. But I did care more about the side characters, and that's what drove me, really. And when I think back, I wasn't really that bothered about him.
Yeah,
did it take away?
It's funny because his name is V. It's like even he is forgettable. V.
The name's V? Even bad, isn't it?
He doesn't even have a surname. Yeah. It's just
really
like even it's like they're saying, we don't actually care about this character. You shouldn't care about this character, but Night City and everything else is very good. I'm like, okay, fair enough.
Yeah, that's a good point actually. And I got enough enjoyment out of the game that it didn't really bother me, I guess, Sud. But I mean, how much more enjoyment could I got out of it if it was a character like Geralt? Probably, twofold. But
is that where the game maybe separates from the whole? Like, is that maybe where the game goes from being a good game to a great game? In your opinion, is it like, well, I really enjoyed it. It's a really good game, but it's not a great game like a Mass Effect is.
Yeah, because I love Shepard.
Yeah, and that makes the difference.
I think that depends on whether you're driven by narrative. And for me, I'm a very narrative-driven player. Single player games, strong story, that's what I'm there for. If your game has a mediocre story, I probably won't play it. And I think the fact that Cyberpunk has a good story, but has a mediocre vessel to play through, and then the gameplay is very hit and miss, I find it really hard to just say to someone, yeah, you should go play this game. I find it so hard to say that this is a game worth playing for everyone.
Yeah. Well, at one point, I actually just put the game on the easiest possible mode and just went through just smashing people with melee with a sword just so I could get through it and get to the next story arc. I don't blame you. Like the RPG mechanics, I'm not really a fan of them in general. What's it called now? Like, the damage numbers and things like that. I don't think that's a good form of progression, especially in a single player game. And that's something that really cheesed me off towards the end. Like, you got a shotgun which can like propel bullets around a corner and hit someone behind a wall, but it doesn't do any damage. And I'm like, well, what's the point? Pointless.
What's the point in giving me these cool toys if they're basically potato guns? What's the point?
Yeah.
I will say early on, and I'm sure you two know more about this because you play it more, but the assault rifles and SMGs especially are terrible in this game for me.
That's why I switched, mate. Do you know what I ended up using? I actually ended up using a baton.
Yeah.
That's it, because it dealt decent damage. I could run through, whack, on.
Yeah.
I mean, I will say I kind of like some of the shotguns and the pistol. I think if you're going to use a weapon, for me it has to be a pistol or a shotgun because the assault rifles are just so bad.
Johnny's weapon's cool.
Yeah, Johnny's weapon's amazing.
Yeah, I've used that a little bit in the mission I did with him. Yeah, that was a good weapon.
By the way, just quickly, in that first mission when you're here, did you feel like John Wick for a bit? Because I did.
Yes. Yeah, 100%.
I got massive
such a
vibes.
good feeling.
Yeah,
definitely. Yeah, right. I know what you mean.
I mean, also, I'm interested to ask you guys, what was the option you chose at the start? Because I ended up going with Corpo in my first playthrough. I don't know if I'll play through it again.
as well, funnily enough.
Oh, did you?
Yeah. Just because obviously we'd seen from the Nightwire events. Was that what it was called? The E3 thingies.
I believe so.
They did the Badlands thing, so I was like, well, I don't want to do that because everyone else is doing it, and I've seen enough of it now. And then there was the what was the other one? It was like in Street Kid, yeah. And then I'd seen a few other critics were doing that one, so I was like, right, well, I want to do something which is different, which no one else has done, and I haven't seen anything else of before, so that's why I went for it. But after going back and watching other people's playthroughs, is a nice addition to the game, but it didn't really matter too much, I found.
Yeah. So I did go Street Kid, and to be honest, I haven't seen what the other 3 prologues are or whatever you call it, but apparently it doesn't make that much difference. You end up in the same place. I mean,
not really, mate.
The only thing that's different is the way, like, my V would be critical of the corpo, like the corpo culture and stuff like that. And he'd be more like, oh, fucking corpos and stuff like that. Whereas I'm sure yours were like, oh, these street kids and stuff.
I mean, I might be wrong, but it felt like it only really gave me just different dialogue options.
Yeah,
it didn't really result in anything.
Obviously, in dialogue, it gives you like sometimes an option. It says like street
corpo.
kid in brackets, and it's like that's your sort of. You can say something different, but apart from that, I don't really know what that brought. To be honest,
no, it was literally just that. And then even those extra dialogue options, all they did was serve to draw exposition from other characters. So again, I didn't find them very useful. I didn't feel like they changed the gameplay that much. Like we were saying with Mass Effect, when you get that Paragon option or that Renegade option, it's very significant and it feels very different to any of the other choices that you have. Whereas these were just something extra in the game. So
yeah, I went for the corpo as well at first because I wanted like the Deus Ex vibe.
Yeah, 100%. Love Deus Ex. Best game. So
that's why I went for it, and then you pretty much you end up in the same point I think on every different prologue. But I think well, actually, I was going to move on, but before I do, I just wanted to ask really about the topic of the thingy. So, do we think that the rumours are not true? Do we believe CD Projekt Red, or do we think the rumours are true that they did cut content?
I mean, I said it before, just quickly. There's never smoke without fire in these sort of things for me. And if they're being so sort of, aggressive with coming out and saying it, that to me almost it says maybe there is something there. Then if they're trying to squash it down, but it's probably one of them where let's be honest, I think it's evident that there's problems clearly, and there's clearly been a lot of cut content, to get the game out in time. These sort of discussions have been happening all throughout, maybe early on in the year. So I'm like, well, yeah, we want to get it out this year. We're going to have to cut some content out of this. And maybe they'll hold some back for the DLC. They're going to do DLC at some point, aren't they? So thing. Maybe they'll go, well, we can just put that in later on or something. That mission that they took out, or them couple of missions, or the side mission, whatever it is, character, they can add them in later. So there's clearly problems with the game. They're already talking about. We were talking about this, weren't we? Quickly, that the next gen sort of game update is probably going to be like midway through the year now, rather than maybe the start of the year. So you can tell already that, and I wouldn't be shocked if that got pushed back to maybe.
I wouldn't be shocked.
That wouldn't shock me. So, and who knows, the DLC, that's probably going to be a year, 2 years away now. Isn't
they said the DLC is going to be free though, didn't they? At least.
Yeah.
I think. Yeah, they're all going to be free.
Don't know about all.
Because obviously with The Witcher, they did the free then 3 smaller DLCs at first, didn't mission things, and then they did the expansions, which did cost I think it was £20, wasn't it?
They were class though.
Yeah, I mean they were worth obviously worth the money. So they'll probably do that again, I assume, but they're going to have to get a bit of goodwill back here, because obviously all these refunds, or the whole debate about, we've gone over that. Obviously, it's left a sour taste in a lot of people's mouths. So
yeah,
a lot of rebuilding to do.
Yeah, all right. Well, I think that's a good place to leave it, and I'll also put a link in the description below for Tim's review on Cyberpunk, so definitely check that out. Okay. Right, we'll move on to the second topic today that we wanted to discuss then, and that is former Xbox executives say Nintendo laughed their asses off when Microsoft offered to buy it. Steve Ballmer, Microsoft former CEO, made his... Oh, these are quotes, sorry, I should stress them. So I'll start again, these quotes. Steve Ballmer, Microsoft former CEO, made his go to meet with Nintendo to see if they would consider being acquired. This is from Kevin, I don't know, do you know the last name? Bachus?
Sounds good, Bachus, yeah.
Yeah, these are quotes from Kevin Bachus, Microsoft former director of third-party relations for Xbox. He also goes on to say, they just laughed their asses off, like, imagine an hour of somebody just laughing at you. That was kind of how the meeting went.
That's strange.
Very strange. I'm not sure how long ago this was. I think you said
2000.
2000, Jesus.
Yeah, it was early on. It was. I think it was even before the first Xbox had come out. So
long time ago.
It was when they were trying to get in, basically, into the market. Microsoft, when they had the whole Bill Gates thing, didn't they? And if you remember it, they really went in. Was it one of the E3s, the first 2001, was it? Or something
yeah,
like
didn't
that,
they have The Rock as well?
They had The Rock and Bill Gates, and it was a bit weird, to be honest. It was a bit strange, but Yeah, I mean, it doesn't surprise me this, because I think it's been documented before that Microsoft and Nintendo, there was kind of an idea they could work together. Obviously, Nintendo at the time were sort of, the software. I mean, I say at the time, it's always the case. They're the kings of software, aren't they, Nintendo? They always have been, and maybe always will be. I don't know, because their games just have got a quality about them and sell ridiculously.
Mm-hmm.
But they've never, not since maybe the early Nintendo days, they've never really got on top of the hardware. They've always had hardware that, could be improved, could be, especially in terms of power, they've always had struggled with that, haven't they? They've always been behind the competition, especially since, maybe this 2000 onwards. So I think that the idea was that Microsoft were going to come in and maybe make the hardware for them, which they're good at, they're good at hardware.
Yeah.
And Nintendo would carry on with the software, and it'd be kind of that sort of partnership. And would have been interesting to see, wouldn't it? Like Mario on the Xbox, or Zelda, new Zelda on the 360 or whatever. It would have been strange.
Yeah, I might have actually played Zelda then. That was the case. Yeah, missed out there, I think.
Yeah, but yeah, it's just mad to think how things could be different, isn't it? With these little things, like I say, little thing. It was never going to happen by the sounds of it. I mean, they laughed at them for an hour. But if they somehow Nintendo would just have done it or something, then it would have been odd. But,
yeah. They seem to have a bit of a relationship now, though. I mean, when was it that we reported on? Was it last year? Years ago, that apparently Game Pass was going on to Nintendo
on the Switch.
Yeah, last year was.
Last year.
Yeah. I mean,
yeah. I think if something like that happened, Game Pass going to Switch, that would be an absolute killer for Nintendo. But I think Nintendo are quite big on retaining the sort of like integrity of their brand. You don't really see it like, if they could easily put Discord or something like that onto the Switch, you could actually talk to people, but instead they insist on you using the Nintendo Switch Online app, which is awful, but it's their app. Nintendo want to keep their doors closed. They're happy as they are. And I think they want to keep it that way. And that's probably the situation that obviously happened back in 2000. They knew they had the games, and okay, their hardware isn't the best. No. But at the end of the day, they're the ones making the games for that hardware. So as long as they can make it run their own stuff, like why would they care? So I can see why they probably laughed them out of the room. And I don't think that's something that Nintendo would even regret even now.
No, probably not.
Yeah,
no, definitely not now. I mean,
no, because isn't the Switch still? Is the Switch still the highest selling console today?
Sold more.
Sure
I think it sold more in November. I'm pretty sure it sold the most in November when new consoles came out. Now, okay, you can maybe say short supply. If the Xbox and PlayStation had actually been available, like properly, they probably both would have beaten Nintendo, because I mean the demand was ridiculous for both consoles. But having said that, it's still a ridiculous achievement. Software, hardware that's way underpowered compared to its competition. But it just has the games, and it has that nostalgia. It has the families buy this thing for the kids.
Yeah.
So it's a massive, massive pull.
Just remember the Wii. Everyone having a Wii.
Yeah, it
people
was
don't like games. Yeah, you go round, they're like, "Oh, do you want to play on the Wii?" It's like,
grandmas were playing
got a Wii.
And stuff.
Yeah, literally, your nan's uncle would have a Wii. It was just everywhere.
I remember at the time seeing news article stories, and it was like they had him in care homes and stuff, like Wii bowling and stuff like that. So only Nintendo could do that, really. So
I actually played Mario Kart on the Wii over the Christmas period.
Was it
and
fun?
It's still fun.
Still fun.
I still got fun out of it.
That is the beauty of Nintendo's games. You can go back to pretty much any of their games for the last 20 years, and they're probably still fun now, because they don't care about like latest technology or graphics, or it's about fun, isn't it, with them?
Yeah,
it's about gameplay and fun. Gameplay's king with them, and fun is king with them. So,
however, I will just quickly say, my worst ever experience on the Wii was probably trying to play Pez.
Oh,
that was absolutely horrific. You had to use that nunchuck thing as well.
Oh no,
that was tough times.
Yeah, I can't imagine how bad that must have been. But
horrific.
I mean, you've seen this year, haven't you? I mean, look at Animal Crossing.
Oh, I know.
It sold more. There was that stat, wasn't there? Animal Crossing sold on its own has sold more than any other PlayStation IP in history.
Is that real?
Yeah, it's ridiculous.
I didn't know that stat.
If you think of any game from PlayStation's entire history, Animal Crossing as a singular, if you compare singular titles, Animal Crossing has outsold every single PlayStation IP ever. So more than the latest God of War, more than Spider-Man, more than Horizon Zero Dawn, more than Gran Turismo back in the day when it's popular,
even more than Last of Us.
More than any of them.
That's crazy.
It's outsold. So I mean, and it's just ridiculous, isn't it? It's no wonder that Nintendo.
I guess it appeals to all ages, though, doesn't it? Really,
that's the thing, isn't it? And it came at a good time, didn't it? You know, start of the pandemic, people were inside. It was like a happy game.
Yeah, it was. Well, I'm sure it came out the week of our first lockdown, didn't it? It was like March the 28th or something like, and then it came out. It was the perfect time. So I think the lockdown probably helped them quite a bit.
Yeah, it would seem that way. So I'm guessing, Tim, you own a Switch.
Yeah.
You've been chatting. Enjoy it?
I don't really. It's not that I don't like Nintendo IPs. I just haven't really been drawn to them. So Mario, I don't play. I tried Zelda, obviously, because of all the craze about it. But again, I wasn't that keen on it. But the amount of sort of AAA Western titles that are now on the Switch has made it very appealing for me. So like I've played what's it called, the Outer Worlds on there.
Oh yeah,
such an
amazing game, and it runs surprisingly well on the Switch. Dark Souls was on the Switch. I enjoyed doing that. Just all the sort of AAA titles that are now sort of trickling over to the Switch. It sort of helps us Western people get more into it. So I think what the console needs is something like Game Pass, that cloud stream service. I know that Control is now available on there via cloud streaming,
right?
Which is good. But if they could bundle it in with some sort of monthly fee, that would kill it. That the Switch would make so much money.
I agree with you, by the way, I'm probably pretty similar to you with the Switch. Like, I like my Switch, but I don't play it that much. It's one of them things where I bought it and I played it a bit at first, and I've kind of almost neglected it in a way, because there's nothing really on there that I'm like, I really want to play this. It's I've tried the Marios and I've tried Zelda, and like, I can understand why people love them. They're fun games, but I can only play like a Mario game for like an hour before going, kind of bored now.
Yeah, and I think we're from that generation where we didn't get the Nintendo craze. I'm definitely part of the Halo generation. That's sort of like my forte. But no, I definitely say that the Switch is it's got some good titles, and at the end of the day, the Switch has triumphed where the PS Vita didn't, by being user friendly and not trying to mug you off at every corner in terms of price point. And I think that is why the Switch is just so successful now.
Yeah. No, absolutely. So, there's no doubt about it. It's so successful.
Is Vita the one that you loved, though, Sud?
I think the Vita's great.
I love the Vita. I got two.
That's the Vita box there.
Yeah. I got the Slim and the original 3G.
I love the Vita. It's so underrated. It's such an underrated console. It's just a shame that Sony basically gave up after like a couple of years. They were just like, we're done now. We don't care.
Yeah, well,
it's not selling like as well as the PS4.
Yeah. Well, the problem was obviously with the memory cards just being stupidly overpriced. 16 gig would cost you a mortgage. It was stupid. and then obviously there was a few good AAA releases. You had Call of Duty and Uncharted, and then they just stopped. So,
Killzone, I always say
Killzone was very good.
Killzone's so good on that. Killzone Mercenary is a great game.
Yeah.
But like, it's just a good console for indie games as well, I thought. Although the Switch has kind of overtook it now, obviously.
Yeah.
Now it's the Switch is the Switch is basically the evolution of the Vita in terms.
100%. Yeah, that's literally how I look at it.
The Switch is what the Vita should have been, in my opinion.
Yeah, 100%.
PlayStation just didn't have the faith in it, and Nintendo
dropped the ball.
Handhelds. Yeah. We saw it even with. I remember. Me and you. I'm sure maybe you had one as well, Tim. We had a PSP, didn't we?
That's the last handheld I had. PSP.
And I really enjoyed the PSP. I really enjoyed the PSP.
I enjoyed it in school.
It was fun.
That was the main thing. Yeah.
There's some pretty good games on it, but then it's like, but they had a bit of faith in the PSP, whereas it got to the Vita and they didn't see good sales early on. And they just went, we're just gonna give enough and we'll just focus on the PS4, and they didn't care. So
maybe they were a bit too early. I don't know.
Probably. If they'd released it maybe 3 or 4 years later, maybe they could have had more success. But
I must admit, I don't know why handhelds just don't appeal to me anymore. When I just touched on, when I was in school, handheld, you can play footy man in class or whatever on the slide. It makes things a bit more entertaining in life back then. But now, I don't know. I don't play mobile games either. If I'm traveling, I'll listen to a podcast. Maybe it's my age. Maybe it is my age. But they just don't appeal to me. So I don't think I probably never play a Switch.
No.
Oh, really?
Yeah, I've never played one at this point.
Have you not?
No.
Mate, they're everywhere.
I know. But, at the moment, given that we're stuck in as well.
Yeah.
The likelihood.
I thought you might have come across one at someone's house or something. No. Like, there's the Switch.
Honestly, it's a bit random. I mean, Ted talks about it a lot. Friend of the show, Ted.
He likes Switch, doesn't he?
Yeah, and I'm surprised he's never brought it around or anything. But yeah.
No.
But speaking about Microsoft and obviously them trying to acquire Nintendo back in the day, Tim, you told us a story off air before we came on that we'd missed to do with Microsoft looking for Uplay off Ubisoft. Add that to Game Pass.
Yeah, so basically, if any of you probably know, Ubisoft have their own sort of not streaming service, subscription service on PC called Ubisoft Connect Plus, where effectively you pay $12.99 a month and then you get access to Ubisoft's entire library. Now, a few sources have reported that Xbox are looking at bundling that in with the Xbox Game Pass Ultimate, which could be an absolute killer play in the market in terms of making that Game Pass just a completely viable product, especially to sell the new consoles as well.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that if they get that in, that's going to be really big trouble for PlayStation. I think really big trouble.
Well,
it's interesting.
Me and Sud are advocates of Game Pass, aren't we? We absolutely love it, the service at the moment. And if they're adding more quality like that and depth.
It's strange because I've definitely over the last 2 or 3 years become more PlayStation oriented, or I can't even say the word. Orientated. Yeah, I think you know this, don't you, Luke? I'm more nowadays. I play.
Your headphones are a giveaway.
Yeah.
I mean, it's the
and the shrine in the background.
Yeah,
no, it is kind of like a shrine. Yeah, I don't think there's anything. Well, there used to be an Xbox box up there, but
did they? Oh, fair enough.
Yeah.
Didn't make
so
the
that
cut
probably
anymore.
says everything, doesn't it? No, just not good enough. But no, like I mean, in general, I don't mind. They're both good, and they both have strengths and weaknesses. But I just have migrated more to PlayStation, mainly due to the single player focus that PlayStation has. I think we can all agree, no matter what your bias is, that on PlayStation, their bread and butter is the single player narrative, theatric sort of games. Whereas Xbox, they tend to lean more towards the sort of multiplayer side. I know, obviously, with the acquisitions, they're probably, hopefully anyway, gonna ramp up their single player efforts as well. But
fingers crossed. I'm
just looking actually, because in that article as well, it actually says some really interesting things about. It says that big year for Xbox. I mean, it says that they're expecting in this article anyway big titles. It says such as Forza Horizon 5, which isn't a big shock. Forza Horizon's a massive game for Xbox.
Yeah.
It sells really well. People love it. It's a great game.
Mm-hmm.
Best racing game for me of the whole generation. Forza Horizon 4. Starfield, which I'd love that to come out this year. Obviously, big fan of space sort of RPGs. Obviously with Mass Effect.
Yep.
So.
Watching that one closely.
That's a no-brainer. Wolfenstein 3, which I'm a big fan of Wolfenstein. I really, really enjoy Wolfenstein, especially on this generation. They've been great games. So that would be great if they could get that out. And it says others as well expected. So the question I want to kind of ask you, Tim, and me and Eldon me and Luke have, we've talked about this for weeks now, haven't we, months, about all these Bethesda games, though. What's your stance on, do you think they're going to be exclusive? Do you not? Do you think there's going to be timed exclusivity, full exclusivity?
Yeah.
How do you think it's going to go? It's up in the air at the minute.
I think if they aren't timed exclusives, then Xbox have wasted their money, and it's a pointless acquisition. If they don't sting PlayStation owners, then I don't know why they've done it. There's no end game if they haven't done it with the purpose of having a timed exclusive. If they just do, what Sony are doing at the moment with some things, like obviously with Call of Duty. They have certain modes cut off for the PlayStation owners. Those things aren't going to make people buy consoles. People aren't going to make purchasing decisions based on what COD map you can get. Right. But I think an entire game, an entire IP from someone like Bethesda, who, yes, have stung us in recent years, but, something like Starfield or Elder Scrolls 6, if that's not a timed exclusive, then I don't know why they did it.
What do you think, just quickly then, about the idea of, because I've heard some people saying, well, okay, say if they're not exclusive, say they are coming to PlayStation, but Microsoft's argument could be, well, yeah, you can buy them on PlayStation for £70 each, or subscribe to our service and get all of them for £10 a month. I mean, that is also a compelling argument. Do you think they could basically have their cake and eat it?
Yeah, I think the problem with that is the only people who are going to know that are people who play games, if that makes sense. Parents and things, around Christmas time, things like that. They only go off what they see on TV. So, and unless it's very clear that, you can get this free with the Xbox Game Pass, then people aren't going to know about it. And most casual gamers won't either. So I think that's going to come down more to advertising. I think if they advertise it right, then yes, it could work. But I don't see how they could advertise in such a way that is like, oh yeah, buy it on PlayStation for 70 or get it free with us. It would be a very strange way to advertise.
I must admit, you make a decent point about some casual gamers, because some of our friends, even though they're on the console quite a bit, so that I'd describe as casual. And even sometimes when I've been like, oh yeah, you should get Game Pass, and they get it, whatever, I'm like, oh, by the way, you're going to get Xbox first party exclusives like day one.
Like, what's the first party?
Yeah, they're like, what do you mean? I was like, oh, if Halo comes out day one, you can get it on Game Pass.
Yeah.
And they're like, oh, I didn't know that. I was like, oh, I thought you would have, because you play it a lot.
Yeah.
But apparently they don't. So you touch on a good point. A lot of casual gamers might pass them by, stuff like that.
And 70%, I said completely making up a number, but 70% I would say of gamers probably buy 2 games a year. And that's Call of Duty and FIFA. And that's all they'll play all year.
In
and
this
that's
country.
it. Yeah, 100%. And then every now and again, there'll be the odd craze such as GTA and things like that. But apart from that, people don't really go out looking for games. So something like Game Pass, where they're mindlessly paying £10 a month, they don't even realize they're paying it. And it's like, oh, here's a new Bethesda game. They'll be like, yeah, sure, I'll download it. That's going to be very convincing. But the offset of £70 to a PlayStation gamer, they aren't going to buy it. 70% of those casual gamers of that made up number aren't going to buy a Bethesda game when it comes out at launch.
Good point.
See, I've kind of changed my mind on this a little bit, because I think at first, me and you, Luke, have both been kind of in the mindset of, oh, they should just pretty much, we think the best strategy would be maybe to just make them exclusive, because then you're going to get people in. But I'm starting to think, is the best strategy to be halfway there and go, okay, the timed exclusive for a year, say. Because what they can do then is they can have that sort of bump of having them exclusive for a whole year, where PlayStation games are missing out. But then when that year's up and they can start selling it on PlayStation, maybe PlayStation gamers go, oh yeah, and then they buy it. And then they can kind of have the best of, they can draw people in that are really impatient, that want them games straight away. But they can also wait for the people that are loyal to PlayStation, that are never going to switch, and they'll make money off them anyway because it's their game. So it's like, I feel like that might be the best model.
From the business standpoint, I wouldn't be shocked if they went down that route.
Yeah. It's the same as something like, Among Us or what's that other game now? Fall Guys. The moment that goes to Xbox, that game will blow on Twitch again.
Yeah.
Not because it's got any new updates or new maps, simply because it's there. So I think timed exclusives do create hype later down the line, and it's a good way to keep the revenue going for the business. Even if you look at, say, PUBG, there was a timed exclusive on Xbox, and it died off for a bit. People weren't playing the game anymore, switched over to Fortnite, etc. And then when it came out on PS4, massive craze again, blew up again.
Yeah.
So timed exclusives do work in favor of both companies anyway. It's just obviously the ones who own it in the first place are going to take the large bit of the cake.
Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. But I'm just starting to think that might actually be the best thing to do now.
Yeah.
But I don't have I don't have any.
Well, with timed exclusives,
acumen, so.
Well, with timed exclusive, it gives them the opportunity to try and sell consoles as well as Game Pass, doesn't it? With it,
yeah, that's what I'm thinking.
And then obviously, they then, like you said, if the people who are just not going to budge, well, there you go,
money anyway.
A year later,
yeah.
And the hype would be there. Tim's right, the hype would be there. With Among Us, just quickly, I never realised that only 4 devs work on that game, apparently.
Really?
Apparently, someone sent me an article the other day.
That's mad.
And I was shocked to read that. Fair play.
That
what
is
a game.
crazy.
And there was also a stat about the player base and how it splits between 4 devs, so each dev accounts for 125 million players.
Oh my God.
It's so
ridiculous.
Crazy. It's like, can you imagine being one of them 4 people? Literally, you'd feel so much pressure, wouldn't you? Having to cater to that many, you've got a massive global audience.
As well as the game's 3 years old, isn't it, or something?
Yeah, 3 or 4 years old.
So they would have just been going around we get good numbers, we're quite happy with this, and then all of a sudden it blows up, and then the pressure is ramped up. Yeah.
If I were them, I'd just sell that straight to EA. Be like, look, boys, take it. put your loot boxes in and just deal with it, mate. I'm not doing this.
The game's on Switch now, isn't it, as well?
Yeah, it is on Switch, but obviously there's no voice chat because Switch doesn't know what voice chat is. So
I still think it should come to PlayStation and Xbox. They'd make so much more money.
I'd love it.
I think they will.
I think it will at some point. Yeah, I think it will.
Seems a sensible thing to do. So just probably before we end this podcast, because we've gone around 45 minutes now, Tim, I just wanted to ask you a bit about Game Pass as a whole. Is it something that you're a fan of? Because I know you mentioned either before or off. I think you mentioned before that you played Cyberpunk on Series X. So you're obviously in the ecosystem. Is Game Pass something that you're a fan of?
It's a bit of a love-hate relationship. So I did a video on it actually around the time it first came out, basically sort of just going over whether it's a blessing or a curse. because there's a few problems I have with it. Obviously, the main draw in from it is that you're paying £10 a month and you get access to all these games at no extra cost. And I think for the average gamer, that's okay. But then for me, I buy all my games physical. So even the games on Game Pass, Forza, Crackdown 3 for some reason, I've bought them all physical, simply just because I like owning the product and knowing that's mine. Mm-hmm. The issue you have with Game Pass, which you've started seeing now, is that obviously games can drop off that service. Mm. So you've put, say, £120, £240 into this service over the past 2 years, and suddenly these products which you want to use just disappear because they aren't actually yours in the first place. And I think that'll be quite scary or interesting to see in a couple of years' time, where we have these classic games that you want to go back and relive like we all do. They won't be there anymore because people won't have bought them physically, and they'll be part of a digital service that you can't have access to anymore. So that's sort of like the digital side of it, which I'm a bit concerned about. The other side of it is the quality of products that you get on there. So for years, we were used to buying films on Blu-ray and DVD and things like that. You pay £10 for a film and there was no problem. Well, now we all have Netflix, so we pay £7 a month and we have access to loads of films, but 90% of the films are awful.
Yeah, they're crap.
The quality
it's true. It's rubbish.
The quantity outweighs the quality completely on Netflix, and it's literally a case of just being able to give you the facility to just scroll through loads and loads to feel like you're getting your money's worth when there's actually one or two things that you can actually watch. So I'm worried that might be something that happens with Game Pass, is that we'll get these first-line titles from Xbox or just titles in general, which are half-baked. Mm-hmm. We've seen it already with Sea of Thieves. That was half-baked. And all right, it's better now. If you guys like it, it's better now.
We first played that game, we called it Sea of Piss. So
exactly.
We weren't fans.
Yeah, it's not good. Crackdown 3, it was
not good.
All right.
I mean, it was okay. Yeah, the single player was okay. Did you ever play the multiplayer? Oh, that was
it's such a lie.
Terrible.
It was but at the same time,
awful.
If you didn't pay £40 a month for it, are you going to feel that bad about it?
Probably not.
Because that's the thing. You're getting it part of this subscription service. So the value of the product becomes less. Mm-hmm. So when things like Forza or Halo 6 or Elder Scrolls come out on there and they're half-baked, are we going to be that bothered? Because we haven't paid as much, so we're going to care as much. Which is the whole reason that people are kicking off about Cyberpunk, because they paid £50. If we'd paid £10 a month for this, I don't think we would all be as bothered. I think it'd be like, oh, no, it's all right. It's part of this service I pay for.
No, although I agree with you to some extent, although I will say that I don't know. I feel like there is an expectation from Xbox fans now that, they've had years of half-baked games and now it's time. It's time to step up now, even if that means maybe they have to raise the price of Game Pass a little bit. Maybe they do.
Yeah.
But to me, you can't be having a half-baked Starfield and a half-baked Elder Scrolls 6. They have to be brilliant games. They have to be top quality games.
Yeah.
If they're half-baked, people are going to start going, actually, Game Pass, is it as good a value as people think? But
then there's the other 100 games
great, so
that you can play on there.
Yeah,
so that's what I mean. It's like quantity over quality.
That's the problem, and a lot of them games. Let's be honest, as good as Game Pass is, and it does, it is good, and there's a lot of good games on there. You actually scroll through that list. There's a lot of bad games on there.
Yeah, 100%.
No. There's a lot of bad. Looks like Netflix. There's a similar model. There's a lot of bad. Yeah. You have to really sort of find your way through to find the good
sift
games.
through the shit.
Exactly. That's a better way of putting it.
Yeah,
you put it more eloquently than me.
Exactly. Yeah. But then, like the other thing, like you said, obviously about half-baked games. I think if we look at the past 2-3 years of games, I'd say like 80% of games that have come out have been half-baked. And for some reason, people are still playing them and people still like them. So I think half-baked games are going to be the way forward to some extent. The only game I haven't played half-baked recently, Assassin's Creed Valhalla for me was a pretty good experience, but there were probably some finishing touches needed, but I wouldn't say that was half-baked. But I'd say the last experience I feel that was complete in every essence of the word would be Last of Us 2. I think that game was just flawless in terms of, its performance on the console and, subjective, but the story, I thought the story and the characters were really good. So I think half-baked games are unfortunately becoming much more common and much more accepted. If you look at the amount of people trying to defend Cyberpunk saying, oh, well, the day one patch will fix it. Oh, they're going to fix it next month. Like, bruv, I don't care. Your game's broke on day one. I paid 50 quid on day one. I want my money back. So
yeah, I get that.
This is something we've been arguing for as well, hasn't it, Sud? Because we hate the patches. They just release a half baked because if there's something wrong, we can
fix it later.
We'll patch it. No,
that attitude. I hate that attitude.
It's frustrating.
You bring up a good point about Last of Us 2 because I know, again, I had problems with the story. I don't think it's a patch on the Last of Us 1 story. Personally, I think Last of Us 1's a much better story. But the gameplay in that game is, I just think the whole experience, the rest of if you take out some of the story elements that I didn't like, the rest of the game's great. It really is great.
Yeah, 100%.
The game looks immaculate, especially on a normal. I played it on a base PS4 and I was like, wow, the game looks great. And that's the reason for me why I love Game Pass. I think it's great. I think it's a great service. I still prefer that big budget game that comes out for £60 or whatever that you know is going to be great. And on PlayStation, in general, you know it's going to be great, don't you?
And I think that's the problem with Xbox is their past few AAA games haven't felt like AAAs. They felt like B action games. Crackdown 3 was all right. Quantum Break was again all right. Forza Horizon 4, it was good, but it was also what you'd expect. It didn't, for me anyway.
Forza Horizon's the only one for me that you can say is a top level quality game.
It's top level, but then I wouldn't say it's for me anyway. I wouldn't say
it's a racing game. It's a racing game.
Yeah, exactly. It is what it is on the tin.
Yeah.
So I think Halo will be the deciding factor for how we look at Xbox going forward.
I think Gears 5 was a good start.
I always forget.
I'd say Gears 5 gives a good start. Now, Gears 5 is not a Last of Us 2. It's not on the same level as like Horizon Zero Dawn. It's not on the same level.
It was pretty good though.
But it was pretty good, and I felt like it was a good step in the right direction.
Yeah.
In terms of what you get in that package. Now, Halo has to be a step up above that, as far as I'm concerned, because Halo is the prime game on Xbox. But obviously, what we've seen of that, it's a bit worrying.
Yeah, and I think my other worry, actually, which I forgot to mention with Game Pass, is especially on the first line titles. The incorporation of microtransactions further down the line. I think I've heard Gears has some, but I could definitely see it getting worse as they try and increase the revenue elsewhere. That's always a worry with games.
Yeah, Halo 5 had a lot of bad microtransactions, if you remember rightly. Stuff full of them.
And obviously we all saw Avengers last month, which is just a money factory for who was it for now? Square Enix, wasn't it? I think
Square Enix.
Well, it's turned out it's not been a money factory, has it? Because they've lost tons of money on that game.
It's mad.
Lost tons of money on it. So.
How do you mess that up?
Yeah, same.
Yeah, I know. How do you mess that up after the Avengers films as well? Everyone was hyped.
Yeah,
I didn't even touch
too late.
it.
The timing. I think the timing was bad.
I don't know that the game was poor.
No. What I'm saying is that the game should have been better. What I'm saying is the timing as well wasn't good. This game should have come out when the films were actually had a buzz a couple of years ago, not in 2020 when no one cares about Avengers anymore. No offense,
if the game was good, they would care.
Maybe, but they would care more. But there's not the same hype for Avengers. Is anyone really that bothered about Avengers now? Not really. People were bothered 2 years ago.
Now. Whereas if they released a Mandalorian game right now, it would sell wildfire. But I definitely agree that the timing of Avengers was definitely a misstep. But I'd rather that than a half-baked game as well, or another Cyberpunk. So swings and roundabouts today.
It is. And that's probably a good place to leave the podcast for today. So we do thank you for listening. And if you are listening to us on YouTube, please like, subscribe, and comment with your thoughts on the topics we covered today, as that'll help the channel to grow. If you're listening to us on Twitch, give us a follow. And if you are listening to us on any audio platforms, please leave us a nice review and also pass on the pod. But thanks for joining us today, Tim. We really appreciated that.
Thank you for having me.
Yeah,
and where can people find you?
YouTube. TJFL Gaming. Actually, got to type in gaming still at the end to find me. Or also on Instagram, TJFL Gamer. Either one of the two.
Perfect. I'll put links in the description below for that.
Cheers, mate. Thank you.
Definitely go and check out his social content and obviously his YouTube channel, as he puts out some excellent reviews. So highly recommended. And where can people find you, Sud?
So it's just on Twitter for me, as usual, at David10Spud.
And I'm on Twitter and Instagram at LEL3Ds at 99 for Instagram. And I should mention that the podcast is also on social media on Instagram, Facebook, and Twitter at ChetReachPod. And all the links will be in the description below. And also join our newly set up Discord if you'd like, because you'll get our live streams. We live stream Monday and Wednesday now. Yeah,
watch us on.
It's
on Twitch. Watch
Twitch,
us on
YouTube.
It's on everywhere, isn't it? YouTube, Twitch, all the major ones.
Yeah, so. We are there Monday and Tuesday, 3 p.m. GMT time usually. But again, thanks for coming on, Tim. We really appreciate that. It was a great chat.
Thank you for having me.
And we'd love to get you back on in the future at some point if you're
100%
for that.
Yeah, I'll be back. Newportians unite. Oh no, sorry, Wales people unite. Walesians.
Wales and the one Englishman.
Walesians. Oh yeah, and you.
Wales,
yeah,
kind of way. And me.
Wales and you.
Yeah.
And you.
Wales and me.
But yeah, we hope you have a good week, guys, and thanks for listening. See ya.
Bye, guys.